March 6, 1945, Manila Harbor, Philippines. Commodore William Anderson stands on the deck of the USS Resilience, staring at what the Japanese called Operation Harbor Death. 400 ships, deliberately sunk, stacked 3 layers deep in some channels. Every approach blocked, every pier demolished, every crane toppled into the water like fallen giants. The masts thrust from the bay at twisted angles, piercing the surface like grave markers in a cemetery that stretches for miles. Oil slicks spread across the water in rainbow patterns, catching the morning light. The smell hits Anderson's nostrils first. Diesel fuel, rotting wood, something else he doesn't want to identify. Death has a smell and Manila Bay reeks of it. Anderson is 48 years old. His hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee show the tremor of a man who hasn't slept in 3 days. Gray streaks run through his dark hair. Deep lines frame his eyes, carved there by 2 years of raising dead ships from harbors across 2 theaters of war: Casablanca, Salerno, Naples, Cherbourg. 7 harbors cleared, 7 impossible missions completed. But this is different. The Japanese didn't bomb this harbor. They executed it with precision, with mathematics, with 3 years of careful planning to ensure it could never be cleared. Rear Admiral Takeshi Iwabuchi personally designed this destruction. Anderson has seen the blueprint found yesterday in a captain's cabin by one of his dive teams. 37 pages of calculations, tide flows, mud density, optimal sinking angles to maximize salvage difficulty. The Japanese knew they would lose Manila. They knew they would die here. But they planned to take the harbor with them, sealing it shut for years, maybe forever. Without Manila Bay's deep anchorage, the invasion of Japan stalls. Every tank destined for Okinawa, every shell for the final push, every ration for 1 million Allied troops. All of it depends on ships reaching Manila's docks. Ships that currently have nowhere to dock because the docks are buried under twisted metal and the approaches are sealed by wrecks positioned like pieces on a chessboard designed to never be cleared. Anderson's executive officer approaches. Commander Marcus Kane, 34 years old, lean and hard with eyes that have seen too much. Kane carries a clipboard thick with preliminary survey reports. The numbers are worse than anyone thought. Not dozens of wrecks, not even 100. 417 Japanese vessels, large and small. Freighters, patrol boats, barges, sampans, all sunk in exact positions to create overlapping obstacles. Clear 1 wreck and 2 more block the gap. Raise a ship from a channel and discover it was pinning down another hull beneath it, crushed into the mud. Kane stops beside Anderson. Neither man speaks for a long moment. They both understand what they're looking at. The Pacific War's greatest salvage challenge, maybe the greatest salvage challenge in human history. Finally, Kane breaks the silence. MacArthur's forces liberated the city 9 days ago, sort of. Fighting still rages in Intramuros, the old walled quarter. Japanese snipers occupy the very ships we need to salvage, firing from behind the same rusted hulks our divers will have to work beneath. Anderson nods slowly. He expected this. Japanese defenders turned every structure in Manila into a fortress. Why would sunken ships be any different? Kane continues. Manila's 800,000 residents are starving. The invasion of Okinawa launches in 3 weeks. The timetable for conquering Japan allows no delays. Anderson sets down his coffee cup. The liquid inside has gone cold anyway. How many men do we have? Kane consults his clipboard. 1,000 officers and enlisted men in the Manila Subic Harbor Clearance Group. Salvage specialists, divers, engineers, fire teams. We pulled them from every operation in the Pacific. 1,000 men to resurrect what looks like it died forever. Anderson does the quick mathematics in his head. 417 wrecks divided by 1,000 men. Even if every man worked on a separate wreck simultaneously, which is impossible, they would still need weeks per vessel. What's the Navy's timeline? Anderson asks, though he already knows the answer will be impossible. Kane's jaw tightens. MacArthur expects results. The Pentagon expects results. They're counting on Manila Harbor to handle more tonnage than it did before the war. Starting in a matter of weeks, not months. Anderson turns back to the graveyard of steel. Somewhere in the Pentagon, planners are drawing arrows on maps, calculating supply routes, scheduling convoys. All those plans assume Manila Bay will be operational soon. A memory flashes through Anderson's mind. New York City, 1942. The SS Normandy capsized at Pier 88. 83,000 tons of luxury liner rolled onto its side, crushing everything beneath it. Anderson spent 18 months raising that ship. 18 months of brutal grinding work. They succeeded, but 3 men died. One of them still visits Anderson's dreams. Johnny Russo, 24 years old. Brooklyn firefighter turned Navy diver. Trapped 60 feet below Pier 88 when his air hose snagged on twisted metal. Anderson was 200 yards away, monitoring another section of the salvage operation, when Russo's panicked voice crackled over the radio. "Boss, the hose is pinned. I can't breathe." Those were the last words Anderson heard before the radio went silent. By the time rescue divers reached Russo's position, he was dead. Drowned in his own helmet, Anderson can still hear that voice. The panic rising, the desperation, the silence that followed. From that day forward, Anderson made a vow. No one else dies on my watch. He trained 150 divers in the flooded holds of the Normandy. A brutal training regime, 18-hour days. Zero visibility drills where divers worked in total darkness, learning to trust their hands more than their eyes. Oxygen deprivation exercises to teach them what suffocation feels like, so they would recognize the warning signs before panic set in. Emergency ascent procedures practiced until they became muscle memory. The Navy called him ruthless. His men called him savior. Not a single diver died during that training. And when Anderson's teams deployed to clear harbors across the Mediterranean and Atlantic, their casualty rate was the lowest in the Navy. But Manila is different. The scale is beyond anything Anderson has attempted. The timeline is impossible, and the enemy, even in death, planned better than Anderson has ever seen. Kane shifts his weight, waiting for orders. Anderson can feel the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. 1,000 men looking to him for leadership. Millions of Allied troops depending on this harbor. The ghosts of men like Johnny Russo, watching from whatever place the dead go to watch the living. Anderson looks at his watch. The hands show 6:47 in the morning. He has 4 months to raise an entire harbor. The clock is already running. But before Anderson can begin planning the salvage operation, he needs to understand exactly what he's facing. Theory and sonar scans only tell part of the story. He needs eyes on the bottom. He needs to see what the Japanese did beneath the surface. "Assemble the first dive team," Anderson says. "I want a full reconnaissance of Slip 2. That's our priority target. If we can clear Slip 2, we can start landing ammunition and food for the troops still fighting on Luzon." Kane makes a note on his clipboard. "I'll have a team ready in 30 minutes. Who's leading the dive?" Anderson pauses. The responsible answer is to send his most experienced diver. But Anderson has learned over 2 years of salvage operations that sometimes you need to see things yourself. You need to feel the wreck with your own hands, understand its geometry, sense how it will behave when you try to move it. "I'm leading it," Anderson says. "You're coming with me. And bring Lieutenant Park. I want his engineering assessment." Kane's eyebrows rise slightly. Commanders don't usually dive on reconnaissance missions. Too much risk, too much to lose if something goes wrong. But Kane knows better than to argue with Anderson once his mind is set. "Yes, sir, I'll assemble the gear." As Kane walks away, Anderson turns back to the harbor. The morning sun climbs higher, burning off the thin mist that clung to the water at dawn. The masts seem to multiply as visibility improves. Hundreds of them. A forest of steel and rust growing from the bay floor. Anderson thinks about his wife Eleanor, waiting in their apartment in Manhattan. The last time he saw her was 3 years ago, 1942. They had a cocktail date scheduled for 6 o'clock in the evening. Anderson promised he would be there. But at 5:45, the Navy summoned him. Emergency. The USS Wakefield was burning off the Newfoundland coast. Anderson flew to the ship, beached her at a location he'd selected from the air, later brought the Wakefield home. He never made that cocktail date. Eleanor saw him for only 3 days between 1942 and now 1945. She writes letters. Anderson reads them when he can. She says she understands. She says she's proud. She says she'll wait as long as it takes. Anderson wonders if she'll still be waiting when Manila is finished. If Manila can be finished. 30 minutes later, Anderson stands in the equipment staging area surrounded by the components of a Mark V deep-sea diving suit. The brass helmet alone weighs 37 pounds. The full suit with weights and boots totals 193 pounds of equipment. Anderson has worn this suit dozens of times, but the weight never gets easier. You don't get used to carrying 200 pounds. You just get stronger at tolerating it. Two divers help Anderson into the canvas suit. They secure the heavy lead weights around his waist. 12 pounds in front, 12 pounds in back to counteract the suit's buoyancy. Lead-soled boots go on next. Each boot weighs 25 pounds. Walking in them on deck feels like dragging anchors. Commander Kane suits up beside Anderson. Lieutenant David Park, the engineering specialist, gears up on Anderson's other side. Park is 29 years old, fresh from MIT, brilliant with calculations but new to combat diving. This will be his first descent into hostile waters. Japanese snipers still occupy some of the wrecks they're about to explore. The brass helmets go on last. Each helmet has 4 viewport windows, front, left, right, and a small port on top. The windows are thick glass designed to withstand pressure at depth. They also limit visibility. Peripheral vision disappears. You see the world through 4 small frames. Anderson feels the helmet settle onto the metal collar ring. Divers spin it clockwise, locking it into place. The seal is airtight. Air from a diesel compressor on deck flows through a rubber hose into the helmet. Anderson hears the hiss of compressed air, feels the positive pressure against his face. The helmet fills with the smell of rubber and machine oil. He tests the communication system. A telephone wire runs through the air hose connecting divers to topside. Anderson's voice sounds hollow inside the helmet. "Topside, this is Anderson. Radio check." The tender's voice crackles back. "Reading you clear, Commodore." Kane Park sound off. Both men confirm their systems are working. Anderson nods to the dive master. "Time to go down." The 3 divers waddle to the edge of the Resilience. Moving in a Mark V suit on deck is awkward. The weight pulls at every step. But once underwater, the suit becomes neutrally buoyant. The lead weights counteract the air inside, allowing divers to walk on the bottom almost normally. Anderson reaches the ladder. Descending a ladder in 200 pounds of gear requires careful movement. One hand on the rail, one foot finding each rung. The weight shifts with every step. One mistake and a diver can fall, tearing hoses flooding the suit. Anderson lowers himself into the water. The bay is warm, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Tropical heat penetrates the canvas suit quickly. Divers in cold water envy this warmth. Divers in Manila Bay suffer in it. The heat breeds bacteria in contaminated water. The canvas never fully dries between dives. Fungal infections are common. Heat exhaustion is routine. Anderson continues descending. 20 feet, 30 feet. Visibility drops with every foot. At the surface, he could see 20 feet horizontally. At 30 feet depth, visibility shrinks to 12 inches. At 40 feet, it will be near zero. This is Manila Bay's greatest challenge. Not the depth, not the weight of the wrecks, the visibility. Divers will work in total darkness, groping along rusted hulls by touch, trying to attach cables and airbags to ships they cannot see. Anderson's boots touch bottom at 42 feet. Mud, thick, viscous, contaminated with oil fume and chemicals from ruptured fuel tanks. His boots sink 4 inches before finding solid footing. Every step stirs up clouds of sediment, reducing visibility to absolute zero for minutes at a time. Kane and Park land beside him. Their helmet lamps create small globes of murky light. Beyond 10 feet, the lamps reveal nothing. Just brown soup. Anderson orients himself using a compass mounted on his wrist. Slip 2 lies northeast. He begins walking, following the compass bearing. Each step requires effort, lifting boots from the sucking mud, placing them forward, sinking in again. His radio crackles. Park's voice. "Sir, I can't see anything. How do we survey a wreck we can't see?" Anderson has done this before. "Visibility is a luxury. Touch is reliable. We use our hands, Lieutenant. Find the hull, follow it, measure with rope, feel for damage. The wreck will tell us what we need to know." They continue walking. Anderson's outstretched hands wave through the murk, searching for obstacles. His fingers brush something hard. Metal, rusted, covered in a layer of biological growth that feels slimy through his gloves. He has found the first wreck. Anderson follows the hull upward, hand over hand, trying to determine the ship's position. Is it upright, capsized, lying on its side? His hands map the geometry. The hull curves away to his left. He follows it. The curve continues. This ship rolled onto its side when it sank. He radios topside. Found the first obstruction in slip 2. Appears to be a medium freighter approximately 200 feet long, lying on its port side. I'm moving to the bow to confirm. Anderson works his way forward along the hull. His hands read the ship like braille. Rivets, seams, a porthole covered in barnacles. The anchor chain still secured to the bow fitting. This ship didn't drift here. It was deliberately positioned and scuttled. Kane's voice interrupts. Sir, I found a second hull 10 feet to your north. Smaller vessel, maybe a patrol boat. It's lying parallel to the freighter. Anderson processes this information. 2 ships, side by side, blocking the slip. Not an accident. Design. Park chimes in. Commodore, I'm at the stern of the freighter. There's another wreck beneath it. I can feel the mast of a third ship pinned under the freighter's keel. Anderson's stomach tightens. 3 ships, stacked, exactly as the intelligence reports warned. But seeing it on paper is different from feeling it 40 feet underwater in zero visibility. If they raise the top ship, the middle ship shifts. If the middle ship shifts, the bottom ship could sink deeper into the mud, becoming impossible to recover. The Japanese planned this. They studied the physics. They knew salvage teams would struggle with the sequence. Anderson makes his decision. Topside mark this position. Slip 2 contains multiple layered obstructions. We'll need the full team to develop a salvage plan, bringing the dive team up. Before Anderson can begin ascending, something catches his attention. A sound. Faint, metallic, rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. The sound is coming from inside the freighter's hull. Anderson's blood runs cold. Is someone alive in there? Trapped for weeks in an air pocket? Impossible. The ship sank in February. This is March. No one survives a month in a flooded wreck. But the tapping continues, deliberate, patterned. Anderson presses his helmet against the hull, listening. The sound is clearer now. Not random, not structural settling. Someone is tapping. On purpose. He radios Kane and Park. Do you hear that? Kane's voice comes back uncertain. Hear what, sir? Tapping, inside the hull. A pause, then Kane responds. Sir, these wrecks have been down for weeks. There's no way anyone is alive in there. Anderson knows Kane is right. Logically, rationally, there cannot be survivors. But the tapping continues. Insistent. Tap, tap, tap. Anderson makes a decision that violates every safety protocol. He's going to investigate. He finds a rupture in the freighter's hull, a 6-foot gash torn during the sinking, wide enough to enter. He radios his intention to topside. The dive supervisor immediately objects. Sir, entering an unstable wreck is against protocol. We don't know the structural integrity. It could collapse. Anderson has heard this objection 100 times. He has violated this protocol 100 times. Because sometimes the only way to understand a wreck is to go inside it. Noted, I'm entering anyway. Feed me more air hose. Anderson pulls himself through the gash. Inside, the visibility somehow gets worse. His helmet lamp creates a cone of light that reveals brown water and floating debris. Pieces of wood, fabric, oil slicks on the surface of trapped air pockets near the overhead. He moves deeper into the hull. His hose snags on a jagged edge. He pauses, backs up, frees it, continues forward. The tapping grows louder. Tap, tap, tap. Anderson rounds a corner, enters what appears to be a cargo hold. His lamp sweeps across the space, and he sees the source of the tapping, a human skeleton, still wearing the remnants of a Japanese uniform, wedged between 2 crates, one arm extended, a metal wrench clutched in the bony fingers. The wrench hangs by a chain swaying with the current tapping against a steel beam. Tap, tap, tap. Not a survivor, just a corpse, still working, still tapping, moved by water flow and current. The wrench must have been in the sailor's hand when he died. Rigor mortis locked the grip. Now the current animates the dead man, making him tap out a rhythm like a ghost sending Morse code. Anderson stares at the skeleton. This sailor died here, trapped, alone, probably killed when the ship was deliberately scuttled. His officers gave the order to sink. He followed it, and it killed him. Anderson reaches out and gently closes the skeleton's fingers, taking the wrench. The tapping stops. The sudden silence feels heavier than the sound. He exits the wreck, carefully retracing his path, ensuring his hoses don't snag. When he emerges back into the open water of the bay, he sees Kane and Park waiting. Their helmet lamps create 3 pools of light in the darkness. Anderson radios them. "Surface, we're done here." The ascent is slow, careful. Rising too fast causes decompression sickness. Nitrogen bubbles forming in the blood. The bends. Painful. Sometimes fatal. Anderson has seen divers crippled by rapid ascents. He makes his teams rise slowly no matter how urgent the situation topside. At 20 feet, they pause for a decompression stop. 3 minutes hanging on a line, letting their bodies adjust to changing pressure. Anderson uses the time to think about what he just saw. A Japanese sailor, dead in the dark, still holding his wrench, still tapping. This harbor is full of dead men. Japanese sailors who followed orders and died for them. American sailors who will die trying to clear their wrecks if Anderson makes mistakes. Johnny Russo's voice whispers in Anderson's memory. "Boss, I can't breathe." Anderson shakes his head, trying to clear the thought. He cannot afford ghosts right now. He needs focus, clarity, the mathematics of salvage. How many wrecks? How much time? How many men? The decompression stop ends. Anderson surfaces. Hands reach down to help him up the ladder. The helmet comes off. Fresh air hits his face, shockingly cold after the warm interior of the suit. Kane and Park surface beside him. They remove their helmets. Park looks shaken. Kane looks thoughtful. Anderson addresses them both. "What we saw down there confirms the intelligence reports. The Japanese didn't just sink ships randomly. They positioned them with precision. 3 layers in some areas. We're going to need a sequential salvage approach. Top layer first, then middle, then bottom." Park nods. "Sir, I can design a tri-level salvage technique. Use underwater scaffolding to support the middle layer while we raise the top layer. But it's never been attempted before. It could take weeks." Anderson considers this. "How many weeks?" 3, maybe 4, assuming we don't encounter complications. Anderson does the math. 4 weeks to clear 1 3-layer section. Slip 2 alone probably has a dozen such sections. Multiply that across the entire harbor. The timeline is impossible. But Anderson has learned something in 2 years of salvage work. Impossible just means no one has done it yet. "Develop the technique, Lieutenant. We'll test it in Slip 2. If it works, we'll apply it across the harbor." Park salutes and heads below to begin his calculations. Anderson turns to Kane. "Marcus, I need you to organize the dive teams. 20 teams, 50 men each. Assign each team to a specific sector of the harbor. They work that sector until it's clear, then move to the next." Kane pulls out his waterproof notepad and begins making notes. "What about the snipers? Sir, Japanese holdouts are still firing from some of these wrecks." Anderson has been thinking about this. "We assign Marine sharpshooters to each dive team. They provide overwatch while our divers work. Anyone shoots at our men, the Marines shoot back." Kane approves. "I'll coordinate with the Marine Corps liaison." As Kane walks away to begin organizing, Anderson stands alone on deck, looking back at the harbor. The sun has climbed higher now. It's almost noon, 6 hours since he first laid eyes on this graveyard. A voice calls from below deck. "Commodore Anderson, you have a visitor." Anderson descends the ladder to the operations deck. A man waits there, thin, gaunt, wearing the simple black cassock of a Catholic priest. His hands tremble. His eyes carry the haunted look Anderson has seen in refugees and survivors. The priest extends a shaking hand. "Commodore Anderson, my name is Father Miguel Santos. I was parish priest at San Agustin Church in Manila." Anderson shakes the offered hand. The priest's grip is weak, malnourished, armed. "What can I do for you, Father?" Santos's eyes fill with tears. "Commodore, I know this harbor. I fished here as a boy. My father was a fisherman. I know every channel, every reef, every current. The Japanese, they did not just kill ships. They killed my city. 100,000 of my people died in the Battle of Manila. My church burned. My parishioners, 47 of them executed in the Bayview Hotel massacre. Santos pauses, composing himself. I want to help you, Commodore. I need to help you. Let me guide your teams. I can show you where the wrecks are, where the channels run deepest, where the mud is thick and where it is firm. Please. Anderson studies the priest. Santos is clearly traumatized. PTSD is written in every tremor, every haunted glance. But there's something else too. Determination, purpose, the need to do something, anything to make meaning from the horror he survived. Anderson has felt that need himself after Johnny Russo died. The need to save the next one, to honor the dead by protecting the living. Father Santos, I accept your help, but I need to know why. Why is this so important to you? Santos's face crumbles. Tears spill down his cheeks. There is a ship in the Pasig River, Commodore, the San Miguel. It was evacuating children from Manila to Corregidor in February. My daughter Maria, 8 years old, was on that ship. Japanese artillery sank it 3 miles from shore. 200 children. I stood on the beach. I heard them screaming. I heard my daughter screaming for me, and I could not swim. I just stood there, helpless. She drowned, calling my name. Santos's voice breaks completely. He sobs. Anderson places a hand on the priest's shoulder. Father, if the San Miguel is in this harbor, we will raise it. We will bring your daughter home. You have my word. Santos looks up, eyes red, filled with desperate hope. You can do this. You can raise a ship crushed under others. Anderson thinks about Lieutenant Park's tri-level salvage technique. Untested, unproven, but theoretically possible. We can try, Father. That's all I can promise. We will try. Santos grips Anderson's hand with sudden strength. Then I will help you. I will show you everything I know, every secret of this harbor. We will resurrect it together. Anderson nods. Report to Commander Kane. He'll assign you to a survey team. Your knowledge will be invaluable. As Santos leaves, Anderson feels the weight of another promise added to his burden. Not just clearing the harbor for military operations. Now he's promised to raise a specific ship, to recover the remains of 200 children, to give a grieving father closure. The mission just became personal. Anderson returns to the deck. The afternoon sun beats down. The temperature climbs toward 90 degrees. His uniform is soaked with sweat from the dive. He needs to change, to eat, to sleep. He has done none of these things in the 24 hours. But first he needs to read the message Commander Kane handed him earlier, the telegram he tucked into his pocket without opening. Anderson finds a quiet corner of the deck and unfolds the paper. The telegram is from his wife, Eleanor, dated 2 weeks ago. It took that long to reach him across the Pacific. The message is short. William, I am 3 months along. The baby is due in July. If it is a boy, I will name him John Anderson after your diver Johnny Russo. Come home soon. We are waiting. Eleanor. Anderson reads it 3 times. Eleanor is pregnant. 3 months. She didn't tell him before he left because she probably wasn't certain. Or maybe she didn't want to distract him from the mission. Due in July, 4 months from now. The exact timeline he has to clear Manila Harbor. And if it's a boy, she'll name him John, after Johnny Russo, the man Anderson couldn't save. This is Eleanor's way of telling him, Johnny Russo's death wasn't meaningless. His name will live on. In a child. In a new generation. Anderson folds the telegram carefully and places it back in his pocket. His son, or daughter. But probably a son based on Eleanor's phrasing. John Anderson. Named after the man Anderson couldn't save. Anderson's eyes blur. He's not sure if it's sweat or tears, probably both. He has 4 months to resurrect this harbor. 4 months to clear 400 wrecks. 4 months to make Manila Bay operational for the invasion that might end the war. And now he has 4 months to finish this mission so he can meet his child. The mathematics suddenly become very simple. 4 months, 120 days, 417 wrecks. That's 3.5 wrecks per day, every day. No delays, no typhoons, no deaths. Anderson looks at the graveyard of steel stretching across Manila Bay. Then he looks at his watch. The clock is running. March 12, 1945. 6 days into the mission. The transformation has already begun. Slip 2, once choked with wreckage, now shows patches of open water. 23 Japanese freighters have been raised towed to deep water outside the bay and resunk where they won't obstruct navigation. The work proceeded faster than Anderson dared hope. His teams found a rhythm. Divers rotating in 4-hour shifts. Surface crews operating around the clock. Floating cranes working under floodlights through the night. But this morning the rhythm breaks. Lieutenant David Park stands in Anderson's command tent, holding sonar readings that don't match the visual surveys. His hands shake slightly as he spreads the printouts across the planning table. "Sir, we have a problem, a significant problem." Anderson looks up from the salvage schedules he's been revising. Commander Kane moves closer to examine the sonar data. Father Santos, who has been working as harbor guide for the past week, sets down his coffee cup. Park points to the sonar image. "We've cleared 23 wrecks from Slip 2. According to the Japanese blueprint, there should be 45 total. But we can't find the other 22. Standard sonar shows nothing. The slip appears clear below the vessels we've already raised." Anderson studies the readout. Park is right. The sonar should show any remaining obstructions. But the image displays only mud and the natural contours of the harbor floor. So the Japanese intelligence was wrong. There are only 23 wrecks in Slip 2. Park shakes his head. "That's what I thought at first, but something felt off. The Japanese were too precise in their planning. Admiral Iwabuchi didn't make mistakes, so I ordered a deep penetration sonar scan. Maximum power, mapping the substrate below the visible layer." Park pulls out a second printout. This one tells a different story. The image shows ghost signatures, faint outlines beneath the mud. 22 objects, flat, compressed, crushed into the harbor floor by the weight of the ships that sank on top of them. Anderson feels his stomach tighten. They stacked them. Yes, sir, the Japanese didn't just position ships side by side. They layered them vertically. Top layer, which we've been clearing, crushed the bottom layer into the substrate. We can't even see the lower vessels on standard sonar because they're compressed flat, pancaked. Kane leans over the table studying the ghostly outlines. "How is that possible? How much weight does it take to crush a steel ship flat?" Park has done the calculations. Each of the freighters that we raised weighed between 400 and 900 tons, concentrated onto the relatively fragile hull structure of a vessel beneath it that's more than sufficient to cause catastrophic compression. The lower ships imploded under the pressure. Their hulls collapsed, everything inside crushed together. Father Santos crosses himself, whispering a prayer in Tagalog. Anderson processes this information. The mission just became exponentially harder. 417 visible wrecks. But how many invisible ones lie beneath them? The Japanese could have doubled or tripled the actual number of obstructions. "How many more are we talking about?" Lieutenant Park's answer is grim. "Unknown, sir. We'd need to run deep scans across the entire harbor to get an accurate count. Based on Slip 2's ratio, I estimate between 600 and 700 total wrecks. Maybe more." The mathematics collapse. Anderson calculated he needed to clear 3.5 wrecks per day to meet the 4-month deadline. That was already impossible. Now the real number is closer to 6 wrecks per day, every single day, with no room for equipment, failure weather delays, or diver casualties. Kane voices what everyone is thinking. "Boss, we can't do this. The timeline was already impossible. Now it's mathematically absurd." Anderson walks to the tent entrance and stares out at the harbor. The morning sun glints off the masts still protruding from the water. Hundreds of them, each one representing not just the visible wreck, but potentially another crushed beneath it. Johnny Russo's voice whispers in his memory. "Boss, I can't breathe." Anderson turns back to his officers. "We don't have a choice. Without Manila Bay operational, Okinawa fails. The invasion of Japan is delayed, maybe canceled. Every day this harbor stays closed, American soldiers die for lack of ammunition and supplies." He points to the sonar printouts. The Japanese were brilliant. They created a 3-dimensional puzzle designed to be unsolvable. But they made one mistake. They assumed American salvage capabilities matched their own limitations. They calculated what Japan could do with finite resources. They didn't account for what America can do when we commit everything we have. Anderson's voice grows harder, more determined. We work faster. We work smarter. Lieutenant Park, I want your tri-level salvage technique operational by end of week. Commander Kane doubled the dive shifts. Teams work 6 hours on 6 hours off. No exceptions, Father Santos. I need you to identify every location where the Japanese might have used layered sinking. Mark them on the charts. The three men acknowledge their orders. As they file out of the tent, Anderson sits down heavily in his chair. His hands are shaking. Not from fear, from exhaustion and the crushing weight of impossible expectations. He pulls out Eleanor's telegram, reads it again for the 100th time. If it is a boy, I will name him John Anderson after your diver, Johnny Russo. Anderson closes his eyes. He will not fail again. Not Johnny, not his son, not the million troops depending on this harbor. He opens his eyes and returns to work. March 14th, 2 days later, Anderson calls an assembly of all team leaders. 20 men gather on the deck of the Resilience at dawn. They represent the 1,000 sailors working around the clock to clear Manila Bay. Anderson can see the exhaustion in their faces, the sunburns, the bloodshot eyes from diving in contaminated water. But he needs more from them, needs the impossible. Anderson stands before them. No podium, no prepared speech, just a Commodore and his men. Gentlemen, I won't lie to you. The mission just got harder. The Japanese didn't sink 400 ships. They sank 600, maybe 700. Half of them are crushed flat beneath the ones we can see. We're not just clearing wrecks, we're excavating a graveyard. He pauses, lets that sink in. The math says we can't do this. 6 wrecks per day, every day. No delays, no mistakes, no deaths. The experts back in Washington are already writing reports explaining why Manila Harbor can't be cleared in 4 months. They're making contingency plans, alternative supply routes, delayed invasion timelines. Anderson's voice hardens. But those experts aren't here. They didn't dive 40 feet into zero visibility to feel what the Japanese built. They don't know what we're capable of. I do. I trained most of you in the Normandy's flooded holds. I watched you clear 7 harbors across 2 oceans. I've seen you do impossible things because you didn't know they were impossible. He points toward the harbor. We're going to 18-hour shifts, 6 hours on, 6 hours off, no days off until this harbor works. I'm not asking for volunteers. I'm telling you what we're doing. If any man wants out, speak now, no shame. This is beyond what anyone should ask. Anderson waits, counts to 10 in his head. No one moves. Then Tommy Chen, the youngest diver in the fleet, 22 years old, steps forward. Sir, my father told me I'd never amount to anything. He said I wasn't strong enough for a man's work. I'm not leaving until this harbor is operational. Until I prove him wrong. One by one, the other team leaders step forward, 19 men. Standing with Chen, Anderson feels something catch in his throat. These men, these magnificent, stubborn, reckless men. Then let's resurrect a harbor. March 16th, 4 days later. The expanded work schedule is showing results. 39 wrecks cleared from Slip 2. The channel is now passable for landing craft tanks. The first LCTs arrived yesterday offloading ammunition for troops still fighting Japanese holdouts in northern Luzon. But the cost is mounting. Divers are showing signs of exhaustion. Heat rashes from working in 85-degree water. Fungal infections from canvas suits that never fully dry. One man collapsed topside from heat exhaustion and had to be evacuated to a hospital ship. Anderson pushes them harder. There is no alternative. Today, Team Alpha is working Slip 2's final section. The most dangerous area, 3 Japanese wrecks stacked directly on top of each other. This is the test case for Lieutenant Park's tri-level salvage technique. Tommy Chen gears up for the dive, 22 years old, Chinese-American from San Francisco. This is Chen's 20th dive in 16 days. His hands show burns from underwater welding. His eyes are red-rimmed from sleep deprivation. But he volunteered for this mission, the most complex salvage operation Anderson's teams have attempted. Chen's job is to weld steel support beams into the mud 40 feet below the surface. These beams will create an underwater scaffold to hold the middle layer ship in place while the top layer ship is raised. If the scaffold fails, all three ships collapse into the mud. Anyone working beneath them dies. Anderson watches Chen suit up. The young diver's hands shake as he secures his weight belt. Not fear, just exhaustion. Chen, you don't have to do this. I can assign someone else. Chen looks up. His face is determined despite the fatigue. Sir, my father told me I'd never amount to anything. He said I wasn't strong enough for a man's work. I'm proving him wrong, one wreck at a time. Anderson recognizes that look, the need to prove yourself to someone who never believed in you. He's seen it in mirrors. All right, but you follow every safety protocol. The moment something feels wrong, you surface. Understood? Yes, sir. Chen waddles to the ladder, descends into the murky water. His tender feeds out air hose and communication line as Chen drops below the surface. Anderson moves to the communication station. Lieutenant Park is already there, headset on, monitoring Chen's descent. Chen, this is Park. Radio check. Chen's voice comes through the speaker, slightly distorted by the helmet. Reading you clear, Lieutenant. Descending to 42 feet. You'll be welding in zero visibility. Trust your hands. The beam positions are marked with luminescent paint. Feel for the markers. Understood. Anderson listens as Chen reaches the bottom. Hears the young diver's breathing. Steady, controlled. Chen has learned to manage his fear. The welding torch ignites underwater with a hiss that comes through the radio. Sparks fly in the darkness below, invisible to those on the surface, but Anderson can imagine them. Brilliant white flashes in the brown murk, illuminating nothing, just creating brief stars in the void. Chen works for an hour, welding the first support beam into position. His breathing grows labored. The heat is getting to him. 85-degree water plus the thermal output of the welding torch. Chen's suit becomes a sauna. Lieutenant, I need a break. The heat is bad. Park checks his dive tables. You've been down 58 minutes. Come up for 15 minutes. Cool off. Then we'll send you back down for the second beam. Chen begins his ascent, slow, controlled, rising through the thermal layers. Suddenly, Chen's voice crackles through the radio, sharp, alarmed. Something's moving. The wreck is shifting. Park leans forward. Chen, describe what you're feeling. Vibration, through the hull, like metal grinding on metal. And I hear something, sounds like a rifle bolt. Topside, everyone freezes. A shifting wreck is every diver's nightmare. Thousands of tons of unstable steel. One wrong movement and it collapses, crushing anyone beneath it. But the sound Chen described is worse. A rifle bolt. That means a living Japanese soldier. Still hiding in the wreck. Still fighting a war that's already lost. Anderson grabs the microphone. Chen abort. Surface now. Marines get eyes on that wreck. The Marine sharpshooter assigned to Overwatch swings his rifle toward the wreck's superstructure, scanning for targets through his scope. Chen's voice comes through, rising in pitch. I see movement. In the bridge windows. Something's there. Anderson's blood runs cold. Chen, surface immediately. Do not stop to disconnect your weights. Emergency ascent, now. But before Chen can respond, a sound erupts. Sharp, unmistakable. Gunfire. The water around Chen's position erupts in bubbles. Bullets punching through the surface. The Marine sharpshooter returns fire immediately. 3 shots. Fast. Precise. Chen is screaming. I'm hit, my hoses cut, no air. Anderson's world narrows to a single point. Chen is 40 feet down. His air hose is severed. He has 90 seconds before he suffocates in his helmet. The communication deck explodes into controlled chaos. The dive supervisor is already shouting orders. Backup divers scramble into gear. But Anderson knows they won't make it in time. Chen is 40 feet down. It takes 3 minutes minimum to get a rescue diver suited and deployed. Chen will be dead in 90 seconds. Commander Kane appears at Anderson's side. He's not wearing a dive suit, just his uniform. His eyes are locked on the water where Chen's bubbles are slowing, weakening. Kane speaks quietly, more to himself than to Anderson. Eddie Grant drowned 5 feet from my boat at Omaha Beach because I chose to save a colonel first. I won't make that choice again. Before Anderson can respond, Kane runs to the rail and jumps. No suit, no helmet, no weights, just a man diving into contaminated water to save another man who is drowning. Anderson races to the rail. Watches Kane surface, gulp air, then dive, descending blind into 40 feet of murky water. No light, no equipment, just determination in the ghost of a boy he couldn't save 3 years ago. The radio is chaos. Chen's panicked breathing, the hiss of escaping air from his severed hose, the dive supervisor trying to coordinate the rescue. 30 seconds pass, feels like hours. Anderson counts in his head. 35 seconds. 40. 45. How long can a man hold his breath at 40 feet while dragging a 200-pound diver to the surface? 50 seconds. 55. 60. The water erupts. Kane surfaces, gasping, drags something with him. Tommy Chen, unconscious, helmet full of water. Hands reach down, pull both men aboard. Chen is laid on deck. Water pours from his helmet as the crew unscrews it. His face is blue, not breathing. Anderson drops to his knees beside the young diver, tilts Chen's head back, clears his airway, begins mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, pushing air into lungs that have been without oxygen for too long. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3. Chen convulses, vomits water, gasps. His eyes flutter open. He's alive. Anderson sits back. His hands are shaking. Kane collapses beside him, coughing up bay water. Soaked, shivering despite the tropical heat. The deck is silent except for Chen's gasping breaths and Kane's wet coughs. Anderson looks at Kane, sees tears mixing with the bay water streaming down the commander's face. Kane saved him. Saved the boy who represented every soldier Kane couldn't save at Omaha Beach. Marcus, Kane looks up. His eyes are haunted, but also relieved, unburdened. I saved one, boss. Finally saved one. Anderson grips Kane's shoulder. You saved the right one. The Marine sharpshooter climbs down from his position, approaches Anderson. Target neutralized, sir. Japanese soldier. Alive. Was hiding in the bridge. Appears to have been there since the ship sank. Surviving on rainwater and whatever he could scavenge. When Chen's welding torch lit up the water below, he thought it was an attack. Fired on instinct. Anderson processes this. Not a ghost. A living man. Alone in a wreck for a month. Slowly going insane. Fighting a war that ended weeks ago. The absurdity would be tragic if Chen hadn't almost died. Chen sits up slowly. Looks at Kane. You saved me, sir. You jumped in without gear. You could have drowned. Kane's voice is quiet. I've been drowning for 3 years, kid. You just gave me a reason to surface. Anderson orders Chen to the medical bay. The young diver is suffering from oxygen deprivation and needs observation. But he'll live. Thanks to Kane's reckless heroism, the tri-level salvage operation is suspended for the rest of the day. Anderson uses the time to reassess. 1 near death, 1 reckless rescue. The mission is taking its toll, but something unexpected happens. Word spreads through the fleet about Kane's jump. A commander diving without equipment to save an enlisted man. The story grows with each retelling. By evening, it's achieved mythic status. Morale rises. The men see their officers willing to die for them, willing to risk everything. It creates a bond, a shared commitment. Anderson notices the change. Crews working with renewed energy, divers volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. The near disaster somehow strengthened rather than weakened the team. March 20th, the tri-level salvage resumes, this time with triple redundancy on safety measures. Marine sharpshooters on every wreck. Backup divers suited and ready at all times. Air hoses reinforced with steel mesh. Tommy Chen insists on completing the job he started. Anderson allows it. The young diver needs to prove he can finish what he began. Over 5 days, Park's technique is tested and refined. Steel beams are welded into the mud. Pneumatic jacks positioned with millimeter precision. Compressed air pumped into the top layer freighter. On March 25th, the top ship begins to rise. Slowly, carefully. The underwater scaffold holds. The middle ship remains supported while the top layer lifts. But disaster strikes anyway. The freighter tilts 15 degrees, the weight shifts unexpectedly. The ship threatens to roll onto its side, which would crush the scaffold and collapse all 3 wrecks into the mud. 4 divers are directly beneath the tilting ship, including Tommy Chen. Anderson has 5 seconds to make a decision, Let the freighter roll and accept the casualties, or attempt something that violates every engineering principle he knows. He chooses violation. Flood the starboard holds. Counter the tilt. Kane stares at him. Sir, that adds 200 tons of water weight. It could sink the freighter before we finish raising it. Do it. The pumps reverse. Water floods into the freighter's right side, adding massive weight. The tilt slows, stops, reverses slightly. The ship stabilizes. Lieutenant Park is staring at Anderson with something like awe. That should not have worked. Every calculation says that should have failed. Anderson's response is quiet. Calculations assume normal conditions. There's nothing normal about raising a 3-layer wreck stack while divers work beneath it. Sometimes you have to ignore the math and trust your instinct. The freighter continues rising. Surface is upside down but intact. The scaffold holds. The middle layer remains stable. 0 casualties. The crew erupts in cheers. They just accomplished something unprecedented. A tri-level salvage. Park's untested technique works. Anderson allows himself a moment of satisfaction. One impossible task completed. 600 more to go, but the victory is interrupted by news from topside. A weather report. Typhoon Isabel. Category 3. Approaching northern Luzon. Estimated arrival April 18th, 16 days away. The Pasig River must be cleared before the typhoon hits. Once monsoon rains flood the river, visibility drops to permanent 0. Salvage becomes impossible until June. Mission failure. Anderson studies the charts. The Pasig is Manila's commercial artery. 14 locations where ships are stacked 3 deep. The worst is a section near the old Spanish fort where Father Santos reported a ship called the San Miguel lies crushed at the bottom. Santos's daughter, Maria, 8 years old, drowned calling for her father. Anderson promised to raise that ship, to bring the girl home. He has 16 days. April 2nd, Team Charlie 60 of Anderson's best divers deploys to the Pasig River. Father Santos guides them, shows them where the current runs strongest, where the mud is deepest, where the Japanese position their carefully calculated obstructions. The first tri-level site is a nightmare. 3 ships so badly entangled that it's impossible to tell where one ends and another begins. The crushing weight has fused them together, metal twisted into metal. Park designs a new approach. Instead of trying to separate the ships, cut them apart. Underwater demolition, sectioning the wrecks into manageable pieces. The work is slow, dangerous. Divers wielding cutting torches in 0 visibility, breathing contaminated air, working in heat that causes 2 men per day to collapse from exhaustion. But they make progress. The first tri-level site clears in 4 days, ahead of schedule. The second site takes 6 days. Complications, equipment failures. One diver suffers decompression, sickness from a too rapid ascent and has to be evacuated. April 9th. They reach the location Father Santos has been guiding them toward. The San Miguel, crushed beneath 2 larger vessels, a freighter and a tanker. The freighter comes up relatively easily, floated with compressed air and towed away. The tanker is harder. It has a 6-foot hull breach. 40 Japanese sailors died when it sank. Their bodies are still inside. Tommy Chen volunteers to enter the flooded compartments and attach the airbags. He descends alone, works in the dark. His radio provides the only connection to the surface. Chen's voice describes what he finds. Skeletons floating in pockets of trapped water. Personal effects scattered across the deck. A photograph clutched in the bony fingers of one sailor. Wife and 2 children, smiling. Chen surfaces with the photograph, hands it to Father Santos. Even enemies were human, Father. This man had a family. They should know what happened to him. Santos takes the photograph, studies it, nods slowly. We will find a way to return this. After the war. His family deserves closure, just as I need closure for Maria. The tanker rises on April 12th, towed away, revealing the crushed remains of the San Miguel beneath. The ship is split in half, pancaked by 1,200 tons pressing down for 3 years, barely recognizable as a vessel. Santos stands on the barge staring at the sonar image. His face is gray. His hands tremble. Can you raise her even like this? Anderson studies the wreckage. It's worse than he expected. The ship isn't just damaged. It's destroyed. But Santos needs this. Needs his daughter's remains on land. Needs the 200 children to rest in consecrated ground instead of underwater graves. We'll raise every piece, Father, I promise. The work takes 3 days, cutting the San Miguel into sections small enough to lift. Each piece reveals more horror. Children's shoes, toys, a doll with one arm missing, and bones, small bones. 200 children's skeletons mixed with the wreckage. Father Santos weeps as each section surfaces. Anderson's hardened salvage crews work in silence. Some of them are crying too. These aren't enemy soldiers. These are children who died because adults made terrible decisions. April 15th. The last section of the San Miguel rises from the Pasig River. Father Santos insists on diving to the site himself. Anderson tries to dissuade him. The priest has no training. But Santos is adamant. They put him in a suit, lower him down. Santos kneels on the river bottom where his daughter died, says prayers, collects bones that might be Maria's. There's no way to identify individual remains. But Santos doesn't care. He places small bones in a waterproof bag, surfaces with tears streaming inside his helmet. Topside Santos removes the helmet, clutches the bag to his chest. Thank you, Commodore. You kept your promise. My daughter is coming home. Anderson feels the weight of that promise lift slightly. He couldn't save Johnny Russo, but he saved Father Santos's daughter, brought her home 3 years late. Better late than never. The Pasig River clears on April 16th, 2 days before Typhoon Isabel's projected arrival. But the celebration is brief, because on April 17th, during a routine salvage operation near Pier 7, a diver named Sean Murphy finds something that will test every man's honor. Murphy is Irish-American from Boston, 28 years old, best welder in the fleet. He's clearing mud from a section of harbor bottom when his hand brushes against something hard. Not steel, wood. He excavates carefully, reveals a wooden box, rotted, corners crumbling, but intact enough to show stamped letters. Philippine Commonwealth, 1941. Murphy brings the box to the surface. The crew gathers as he pries open the lid. Inside, silver coins, hundreds of them, each stamped with 10 pesos. The crew goes silent. Then whispers spread. Calculations. If there's one box, there might be more. Might be hundreds. Father Santos approaches, sees the coins. His face pales. Commodore, in 1942, before Corregidor fell, the Americans dumped 15 million pesos into Manila Bay. The Japanese captured some of our divers, forced them to recover about 2 million pesos. The divers worked until they died from exhaustion. You just found the rest, the lost treasure of Manila Bay. Anderson does the math quickly. 15 million pesos equals $7.5 million, divided among 1,000 men. That's $7,500 each, 150 months of Navy pay. More money than most of these men will see in a lifetime. And it's just sitting there in the mud, waiting. Anderson sees the hunger in his men's eyes. These sailors work 18-hour days for $50 a month. They risk death in contaminated water. They've watched friends collapse from exhaustion and heat. Now they're standing on a fortune. Anderson makes his decision quickly. He has to, before greed takes root. Gentlemen, we're here to resurrect a harbor, not hunt treasure. We raise ships, but if peso boxes are in the way of salvage operations, we document them. After the harbor is operational, then we properly recover the silver. Navy regulations: 50% goes to the recovery crews, 50% to reconstruction funds. Anyone caught diving off mission for pesos gets court-martialed. Clear. The men nod reluctantly, but Anderson sees Sean Murphy pocket 3 coins when he thinks no one is watching. That night, whispers spread through the camp, divers muttering about millions lying in the mud while they earn pittance. Some suggest recovering the silver secretly, keeping it for themselves. The peso fever has begun, and it threatens to tear apart everything Anderson has built. April 18th, dawn breaks over Manila Bay. The sky is gray, heavy clouds rolling in from the east. Typhoon Isabel arrived overnight, but something miraculous happened. The storm veered south, missed Manila by 60 miles. The wind is strong, the rain heavy, But it's not the catastrophic deluge that would have flooded the Pasig River and ended the mission. Anderson stands on deck, rain soaking through his uniform, and allows himself to believe in providence, or luck, or whatever force occasionally smiles on desperate men. The Pasig is clear, the typhoon missed, the timeline holds. But a different storm is brewing in his fleet. The peso fever is spreading. April 20th, Anderson calls Commander Kane and Lieutenant Park to his tent. He needs to address the treasure situation before it becomes a crisis. Marcus, what are you hearing from the men? Kane doesn't sugarcoat it. They're obsessed, sir. Every diver who goes down is looking for peso boxes instead of focusing on salvage. Productivity is dropping. Yesterday, Team Bravo spent 4 hours searching a section that should have taken 2. They claimed equipment problems. I think they were hunting silver. Park adds his observation. The tension is affecting morale in a different way. The men who want to follow orders resent the men who are searching. It's creating divisions. Team leaders are fighting among themselves. Anderson has seen this before, not treasure specifically, but any situation where temptation divides loyalty. It destroys units from within. What do you recommend, Marcus? Kane has been thinking about this. We need to legitimize the peso recovery. Take away the forbidden fruit aspect. I propose we dedicate one team specifically to treasure salvage. Make it official. Document everything. Split the proceeds exactly as you promised. 50-50 between crew and reconstruction. Anderson considers this. It's risky. Dedicating 60 men to treasure hunting means 60 fewer men clearing wrecks. But if it stops the secret searches and restores unit cohesion, it might be worth it. Who leads the peso team? Kane's answer surprises him. I do, sir. The men need to see an officer invested in the promise you made. And I need a mission that isn't life or death for a change. Something where success means money instead of survival. It'll be good for me. Anderson studies Kane. The commander has been different since he saved Tommy Chen. Lighter somehow. The Eddie Grant ghost seems quieter. Maybe treasure hunting is exactly what Kane needs. A low-stakes mission to balance the high-stakes salvage work. All right, take Team Delta, 60 men. You have until May 1st to recover as many pesos as you can find. But here's the condition. You personally document every single coin, every box. I want transparency so complete that no one can accuse anyone of theft. Clear, Kane salutes. Crystal clear, sir. I'll make this the most honest treasure hunt in naval history. April 22nd, Kane's peso recovery operation begins. He assigns Sean Murphy, the diver who found the first box, as his primary search specialist. Murphy knows what to look for, where the boxes might have settled, how to distinguish rotted wood from mud. The work is methodical. Grid search pattern, sonar mapping, careful excavation. Every peso box is brought to the surface, opened in front of witnesses, coins counted, and logged in a detailed ledger Kane maintains personally. By April 25th, they've recovered 47 boxes, 470,000 pesos, over $200,000. The crew's share alone exceeds what most of these men will earn in a decade. But Murphy isn't satisfied. He approaches Kane privately. Commander, there's more down there, a lot more. I can feel it. Near the spot where we raised the San Miguel. I think when the Americans dumped the pesos, they concentrated them in deep water near the Pasig mouth. That's where the San Miguel was heading when it sank. The boxes are probably buried under where the ship was. King considers this. The San Miguel site has been cleared, but they haven't done a deep search of the substrate beneath it. How sure are you? Murphy's eyes are intense. Commander, I grew up salvaging scrap in Boston Harbor. You develop a sense for where things settle. Heavy objects in current. The pesos would have concentrated in the deepest depression. That's the San Miguel site. I'm betting there are hundreds of boxes down there. Maybe 1,000. Kane does the math. 1,000 boxes. 10 million pesos. $5 million. Split 50-50. Every man in the fleet gets $5,000. Life-changing money. But here's where temptation whispers. Murphy leans closer. Commander, we're the only ones who know about this spot. We could recover half the boxes, report half. Nobody would ever know. You and me, we split the unreported half. That's $2.5 million each. We'd be set for life. Kane feels the temptation like a physical weight. $2.5 million. He could retire, buy a house, never dive into contaminated water again, never risk his life for $50 a month. Eddie Grant's face flashes in Kane's mind. The boy drowning at Omaha Beach. Kane chose to save the colonel instead because the colonel outranked a private. Kane calculated value, made the pragmatic choice. It was the right choice tactically, but it haunted him for 3 years. Now Murphy is asking him to make another calculation. Choose personal gain over honor. Take the pragmatic path instead of the right one. Kane looks at Murphy, sees the hunger in the diver's eyes, the rationalization already forming. Sean, how many people would know about this? Murphy shrugs. Just us, maybe 2 other divers I trust. We bring up the boxes at night, hide them in one of the abandoned wrecks outside the bay. After the war, we come back and collect. Kane lets the silence stretch. Lets Murphy think he's considering it. Then Kane speaks quietly. Sean, I saved 2,340 lives at Omaha Beach. But I let one boy drown because I chose to save someone more important. That boy's name was Eddie Grant. He was 19. He drowned 5 feet from my boat while I pulled a colonel to safety. Kane's voice gets harder. I made the smart choice that day, the tactical choice, and it's destroyed me for 3 years. I'm not making that choice again. We report every peso we find, every single one. If you can't live with that, you're off this team. Murphy stares at Kane, calculating, then slowly nods. You're right, Commander. I just had to know you'd say no. Needed to know you're the officer I think you are. Kane isn't sure he believes Murphy, but it doesn't matter. The line is drawn. Tomorrow we search the San Miguel site, we document everything we find, and we do it by the book. April 27th. Kane's team searches the area where the San Miguel sank. Murphy was right. The peso box is concentrated here. In 3 days, they recover 180 boxes, 1.8 million pesos. The mother lode. Every box is opened publicly. Coins counted, logged. The crew watches in amazement as the treasure accumulates. The final total exceeds all expectations. By April 30th, Kane's peso recovery operation ends. Final count, 297 boxes, 2.97 million pesos, $1.485 million. Split 50-50. Every man in Anderson's 1,000-man fleet receives $741. 18 months of Navy pay. More money than most have ever seen. The other half goes to Philippine reconstruction. Father Santos will ensure it's used to rebuild schools, hospitals, churches, destroyed in the Battle of Manila. Kane presents the final ledger to Anderson. Every peso accounted for. No theft, no corruption. The most honest treasure hunt in history. Anderson reads through the ledger, nods slowly. You did good, Marcus. The men will remember this. Not just the money, the integrity. You could have taken more. Nobody would have known. But you didn't. That matters. Kane's response is quiet. I saved one boss. At Omaha Beach, I saved 2,340. But I lost one. For 3 years, that one mattered more than the thousands. Then I saved Tommy Chen. Finally saved the one I couldn't save before. The pesos are just money. My integrity is who I am. I'm not selling that for silver. Anderson grips Kane's shoulder. No words needed. May 1st, exactly 8 weeks into the mission. Anderson reviews the progress reports. Slip 2, 100% clear. LCTs docking daily. Main channel 80% clear. Liberty ships can now reach the inner harbor. Pasig River, 100% clear. Commercial traffic can resume. Piers 3, 4, and 5 repaired and operational. Total wrecks cleared 312. 105 to go. The pace exceeds all projections. Anderson's teams are averaging 5.2 wrecks per day. The impossible mathematics are becoming possible through exhaustion skill and stubborn refusal to quit. But the cost is visible. Every diver shows signs of chronic fatigue. Skin infections, weight loss from working in heat that suppresses appetite. 2 men have been evacuated with serious decompression sickness. One developed a fungal infection in his lungs that required hospitalization. Anderson knows he's pushing them beyond reasonable limits. But Okinawa is bleeding. The invasion of Japan looms. Every day the harbor stays partially closed, American soldiers die. May 15th, an unexpected visitor arrives. General Douglas MacArthur boards the Resilience. Anderson stands at attention. MacArthur surveys the harbor, sees the Liberty ships docked at restored piers, sees the clear channels where wrecks used to block navigation, sees the transformation. MacArthur turns to Anderson. Commodore, when I gave you 4 months, I didn't believe it was possible. The experts told me 9 months, maybe a year. I gave you 4 months because that's what I needed, not what I thought you could deliver. MacArthur pauses. You're going to make it, aren't you? Anderson's response is careful. Sir, we'll have all priority channels clear by July 1st. Full operational capacity by mid-July. The harbor will handle more tonnage than pre-war levels. MacArthur's stern face cracks into something resembling a smile. Impossible, but you're doing it anyway. That's the American way, Commodore. We don't accept limitations. We exceed them. MacArthur shakes Anderson's hand. When this war is over, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did here. Manila Bay didn't just survive. It resurrected. Because you refused to accept that some things can't be done. As MacArthur's boat pulls away, Anderson returns to work. Praise is nice, but the mission isn't finished. June 1st, Tommy Chen approaches Anderson with a request. Sir, I'd like to lead the final salvage operation. Anderson is surprised. Chen has been working non-stop for 3 months. He's earned rest. Why volunteer for more? What operation? Chen points to the harbor map. One wreck remains in the main channel. A Japanese destroyer, 800 tons, lying across the deepest part of the navigation lane. It's been designated low priority because ships can navigate around it. But clearing it would open the channel to its full width. That destroyer, sir, it's the last major obstruction. If we remove it, the harbor is completely clear. I want to finish what we started. Anderson studies the young diver. Chen has transformed over 3 months. The scared boy who vomited in his helmet is gone. In his place stands a confident salvage specialist. Why is this important to you, Chen Dane? Chen's answer is simple. My father said I'd never amount to anything. In 3 months, I've helped clear over 300 ships. I've welded in zero visibility. I've survived a sniper attack. I've done things my father said were impossible. That destroyer is the last piece. When it's gone, I write my father a letter. Tell him what I've accomplished. Prove he was wrong. Anderson approves the mission. Chen leads a team of 20 divers. They work for 5 days, cutting the destroyer into sections, lifting each piece. The work is complicated by the ship's armament. Live ammunition still in the magazines. Unstable after months underwater. On June 6th, the final section of the destroyer rises to the surface. Tommy Chen surfaces with it, removes his helmet, looks at the clear channel. The main navigation lane is open, completely clear for the first time since February. Chen's face shows something Anderson hasn't seen before. Pride. Not arrogance, just quiet satisfaction of a man who proved himself. That night, Chen writes a letter to his father in San Francisco. Anderson never learns what Chen wrote. But 6 weeks later, Chen receives a response. One line. I was wrong about you, son. You are stronger than I ever imagined. Chen frames the letter, hangs it in his bunk. July 1st, Anderson's target date for full operational capacity. He stands on deck at dawn, counts the ships in Manila Bay, 53 vessels at anchor, 20 Liberty ships docked at piers, LCTs shuttling between ships and shore. The harbor that was dead 4 months ago now pulses with activity. The final statistics are staggering. 417 wrecks cleared, actually 423. The deep sonar scans revealed 6 more crushed vessels, all removed. 0 diving deaths, 14 serious injuries, 2 permanent disabilities from decompression sickness, but no deaths. In 4 months, Anderson's 1,000-man team accomplished what experts said would take a year. Lieutenant Park's tri-level salvage technique is being written into Navy manuals. Commander Kane's honest peso recovery is being cited as a model for future salvage operations. Father Santos's harbor knowledge saved weeks of trial and error. And Tommy Chen proved his father wrong. Anderson allows himself a moment of satisfaction, then returns to work. There are still small wrecks to clear, debris to remove, piers to reinforce. The mission isn't over, but the impossible part is finished. July 16th, News reaches Manila that changes everything. The United States has successfully tested an atomic weapon in New Mexico, a bomb so powerful it vaporized the test tower and left a crater of fused glass. The implications are immediate. If this weapon works as described, the invasion of Japan might not be necessary. The war could end without the million Allied casualties planners predicted. Anderson thinks about the millions of shells and tanks and rations he helped deliver through Manila Harbor. All of it prepared for an invasion that might never happen. Was it meaningless, all the exhaustion, the injuries, the 4 months of impossible work? No, because Okinawa was real. The 82-day battle consumed unprecedented quantities of ammunition and supplies. Without Manila Bay, Okinawa fails. Thousands more Americans die. The harbor mattered, regardless of what comes next. August 6th, the atomic bomb drops on Hiroshima, 80,000 dead. The city vaporized. August 9th, a second bomb destroys Nagasaki. August 15th, Japan surrenders. The war is over. Anderson's mission suddenly shifts. No longer invasion logistics, now occupation support and reconstruction. Manila Harbor will help rebuild the Philippines, feed the starving, transport refugees home. The resurrection continues, just with a different purpose. August 20th, a telegram arrives for Anderson. From Eleanor. William, John Anderson was born July 12th. Healthy, beautiful, looks like you. Come home. We are waiting. Anderson reads the telegram. His son, born exactly 4 months after the mission began, named John after Johnny Russo. The timing feels significant, as if the universe waited for Anderson to finish resurrecting Manila Bay before giving him his own resurrection. A new life to balance the life he couldn't save. Anderson requests leave. The Navy approves immediately. His work in Manila is done. Time to go home. September 1st, Anderson boards a transport ship heading to San Francisco. Commander Kane Lieutenant Park Tommy Chen and Father Santos stand on the dock to see him off. Kane speaks for all of them. Boss, we did the impossible because you believed it was possible. You trained us in the Normandy. You led us through Manila. You kept us alive. We won't forget. Anderson's response is characteristically brief. You did the work. I just pointed at the wrecks. Take care of each other. As the ship pulls away, Anderson watches Manila Harbor recede. The pier is bustling with activity. The channels clear of obstacles. The bay alive with ships. 4 months ago, this harbor was dead, executed by an enemy who knew exactly how to kill it forever. But they didn't account for American stubbornness, for engineers who refused to accept impossible, for divers willing to work in zero visibility because the alternative is unacceptable. You can't kill a harbor, not permanently, not if determined men decide to resurrect it. September 15th, Anderson arrives in New York. Eleanor waits at the pier, holding a 2-month-old baby, John Anderson, named after Johnny Russo. Eleanor places the baby in Anderson's arms. The child looks up at him with curious eyes. Anderson thinks about all the men he's saved over 3 years, all the harbors he's cleared, all the impossible missions he's completed. But this, holding his son, named after the man he couldn't save. This is resurrection in its purest form. Welcome home, William, Eleanor whispers. Anderson holds his family, and for the first time in 3 years, Johnny Russo's ghost is quiet. October 12th, 1985, 40 years later. William Anderson dies peacefully at age 88 in his home in Connecticut, surrounded by family, Eleanor at his side, John, now 40 years old, holding his father's hand. The funeral is held at Arlington National Cemetery. The headstone reads, Commodore William Anderson, USN 1897 to 1985, father of Navy salvage, Normandy, Manila, Incheon, Suez. Marcus Kane attends, now 74. Retired admiral. He delivers the eulogy. Bill Anderson taught me that saving lives matters more than following orders. At Omaha Beach, I saved 2,000 men, but I lost one boy because I calculated value instead of acting on instinct. Bill showed me that every life is incalculable, worth dying for, worth diving into contaminated water without gear, worth ignoring the math that says something can't be done. Kane's voice breaks slightly. Bill raised the Normandy when experts said it couldn't be done. He cleared Manila Harbor in 4 months when experts said it would take a year. He saved lives when death seemed inevitable. He resurrected things people said were dead forever. Kane pauses. And he taught me to do the same. Not just with harbors, with myself. I was drowning in guilt when I met Bill. He showed me how to surface, how to save the one I couldn't save before, how to be honest when dishonesty would be easier. Kane looks at the flag-draped casket. Rest easy, boss. The harbors you cleared are still operating. The lives you saved are still living. The example you set is still inspiring. You did the impossible, and you made us believe we could too. Tommy Chen attends, now 62, CEO of Chen Salvage International, the largest maritime salvage company on the West Coast. After the service, Chen approaches John Anderson. Your father changed my life. I was a scared kid who believed I'd never amount to anything. He taught me that fear is just the feeling before courage. That impossible is just the word before achievement. Chen hands John a framed photograph. It shows a young Tommy Chen, age 22, covered in grease and mud, standing beside William Anderson in Manila Bay. Both men are smiling despite their exhaustion. I keep this in my office to remember where I came from, who I was before your father showed me who I could become. Father Miguel Santos, now 96, cannot travel from Manila. But he sends a letter. John reads it at the graveside. Dear John, your father gave me back my daughter, not alive, but returned, brought from water to land, from unknown grave to consecrated ground. He promised to raise the San Miguel when everyone said it was impossible. He kept that promise, like he kept every promise. Your father was a man of his word. In a world where words are cheap, he resurrected harbors. He resurrected hope. He resurrected me when I was dead inside. Manila Bay still flows because of him. 200 children rest in peace because of him. I am still alive because of him. Bless you, William Anderson. May you find the peace you gave others. After the service, John Anderson visits the Navy Museum in Washington, D.C. A new exhibit is opening. Manila Harbor, the Impossible Resurrection. The exhibit displays Admiral Iwabuchi's blueprint for Operation Harbor Death, side by side with Anderson's salvage reports. The contrast is stark. 37 pages of mathematical precision designed to ensure permanent closure, matched against handwritten logs documenting 423 wrecks cleared in 120 days. There's a display of peso coins recovered by Kane's team. A sign explains the honest treasure hunt, how temptation was resisted, how integrity was maintained. There's a photograph of Tommy Chen welding underwater in zero visibility. Caption reads, "Courage is working in the dark because the light is waiting on the other side." And there's a Mark V diving helmet, the actual helmet William Anderson wore during his first dive into Manila Bay. Donated by Eleanor after William's death, John Anderson stands before the helmet, touches the brass, imagines his father descending into 40 feet of contaminated water. Zero visibility, surrounded by death, choosing to resurrect instead of retreat. A young Navy diver, 23 years old, approaches, reads the exhibit. Sir, did you know Commodore Anderson? John smiles. He was my father. The young diver's eyes widen. Your father is a legend in the dive community. We study his techniques at salvage school, the tri-level recovery, the zero visibility protocols, the leadership principles. Everything we do is built on what he started. John nods. What's the most important thing you learned from his example? The young diver doesn't hesitate. That impossible just means nobody's done it yet. Commodore Anderson proved that if you refuse to quit, if you break the problem into pieces, if you trust your team and work harder than seems humanly possible, you can resurrect anything. Even a harbor the enemy designed to stay dead forever. John Anderson smiles. His father's legacy lives on, not just in cleared harbors and salvaged ships, but in the mindset of a new generation. The exhibit's final display is a large photograph of modern Manila Harbor. Container ships 10 times larger than World War II Liberty ships, docking at piers built on reclaimed land where Anderson's teams cleared wrecks 80 years ago. The harbor handles 50 million tons annually, 200 times what it did in 1945. A plaque reads Manila Harbor 1945 to present, from graveyard to gateway. 423 wrecks cleared, 0 diving deaths, 1 impossible mission accomplished. You can't kill a harbor, not permanently. Engineers will always beat destroyers, Because creation is patient, destruction is temporary, and determined men refuse to accept that some things can't be fixed. Below the plaque, one final note. Of the 15 million pesos dumped into Manila Bay in 1942, approximately 5 million were recovered by U.S. Navy salvage teams in 1945. The remaining 10 million pesos are still missing. Treasure hunters continue searching Manila Bay to this day. The silver waits in the mud, a mystery that survived the war, a reminder that some resurrections are still incomplete. John Anderson reads the plaque, thinks about his father's life, the harbors cleared, the lives saved, the impossible made possible through stubborn refusal to quit. He thinks about his own name, John Anderson, named after Johnny Russo, the diver his father couldn't save. The ghost that drove William Anderson to save everyone else. Sometimes the lives we can't save inspire us to save all the others. Sometimes failure becomes the foundation for every future success. Sometimes you have to lose one to learn how to save thousands. John Anderson places his hand on his father's diving helmet one final time. You did good, Dad. The harbor still works. The legacy still lives. You resurrected more than steel and water. You resurrected hope. In a world that said impossible, you said, watch me. John walks out of the museum. Outside, the Potomac River flows past. Another harbor, another waterway, still operating because men like William Anderson refused to let them die. The resurrection continues, always has, always will, because you can't kill a harbor, not if determined men decide otherwise.